welcome to Andrew Green. He's the Principal and CEO of Chichester College Group, and a fast-moving organisation it is. I got to know Andrew when I interviewed him for some other research I did, and he was at that point at Brighton Metropolitan College, which may come up in the conversation, the presentation today. Spoke to Andrew briefly before many of you joined, and he said he'll do his presentation and then Q&A, if that's okay with all of you. And then we can do that through hands or however naturally it feels. We've got less than anticipated, and more may join, but there's a good 9 or 10 of us, so we probably, experience tells me the hands thing will work, but see how you feel. So thank you again, Andrew. It's a privilege to have you here, and thank you for making time. And it's over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm just seeing if my presentation will load up. Hopefully it will. It's working out a few details. It says this. Still working on it. That's good, isn't it? So let me start before they pop up anyway. So thank you, and thank you, Kevin, for asking me to do this. Really, really honoured and proud to be part of this presentation. I think hopefully you'll find it interesting, and there'll be some little golden nuggets in there. I think I always caveat these presentations that I give to say that, you know, this is the leadership stuff that worked for us at CCG. It's the leadership stuff that worked for me and my team, and etc. And leadership is contextual and situational, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in another organisation or in a different situation, but it is what it is. Now, our PowerPoint doesn't seem to be working, so let's try something else. How do I stop that? Let's stop that there. Stop presenting. A second. Let me share my screen, and then if I put that up there, can you now see that? Yep. Great. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So yeah, there's just that little caveat. Say it could work. It works for us, and it is situational and contextual. I think that's really important. What I'm going to try and show you this afternoon is where we've been able to merge with additional colleges and been a successful group because of the things that we brought together under our leadership, which I'll talk about. But I'll just give you a little bit of context first as we go through. So Chichester College was formed in 1964, and in 2002, way before I joined, they merged with Brinsbury College, which is a land-based college. And in 2015, I joined in 2010. In 2015, we decided to expand. We were about a 45 million college at the time, and decided that that wasn't big enough to survive the various cuts that were coming down the line and increased costs for the sector. So in 2017, we were asked to merge with what was Central Sussex College, which we did, and we created Chichester College Group, at which point I became executive principal. In 2019, we merged with Worthing College, and in March 2020, we achieved outstanding for the whole group. And then in 2020, we reopened Haywards Heath College, which had been closed down as part of the Central Sussex collapse. All of those were competitive tender, and we won those competitive tenders through a bidding process. So where we're located currently, so Chichester College, Brinsbury College just north of Holborough, Crawley College, Haywards Heath, and Worthing. And we very much made the decision that we want to geographically keep within West Sussex or stroke Brighton and Hove, because we didn't want to start merging with colleges in Newcastle, etc. We don't believe that model necessarily worked. We are in the negotiations currently in the due diligence stage of a pending merger with GB Met, which is the old, what was City College Brighton Hove and Northbrook, and they have 2 sites in Brighton, a site in Shoreham, and 2 sites in Worthing, which will give us 3 sites in Worthing going forward. Currently about £70 million college, 2,000 staff, 7,000 16 to 18-year-olds, 25,000 students in total across all curriculum areas and levels, and the new merged group will be about size about 106 million, 40,000 learners in total, 9,000 16 to 18-year-olds again across all areas. And just to give those previous Ofsted grades, Chichester and Brinsbury outstanding March 2014, and then Worthing College were good the year before we merged with them, and Central Sussex were requires improvement for actually 3 times in a row before we merged with them in 2017. And then in 2020, with all of those colleges in the group, we achieved outstanding in all aspects, which we're incredibly proud of. This was just pre-COVID lockdowns. We're really lucky to have got in at that point. My background, just for interest, is that I'm a chemistry graduate from Nottingham University, and I left there thinking I don't look good in a lab coat, so what else can I do? So I joined House of Fraser graduate trainee scheme and worked very happily on Oxford Street in London at their store for about 3.5 years. Then moved to Boots the Chemist, where I worked at various stores around the country and ended up running their sort of back office staff. Back office areas, and then I retrained as a teacher in business and management in 1996 and fell into a placement at what was Brighton College of Technology at the time, or City College Brighton Hove as it was after that. Didn't really know FE because I'd become the traditional route through school and to university, but absolutely fell in love with FE and what it does for young people. I became vice principal at City College Brighton Hove in 2000 and then moved to deputy principal at Chichester in 2010. As I said, executive principal in 2017. And then last year I was asked by the then FE commissioner, Rich Atkins, to go and be interim CEO at GB Met because they got themselves in a bit of trouble financially and quality wise. So I went and did that for a year, where I met Kevin, and then I was appointed as the CEO as Sheila LaGrange gone on to be the next FE commissioner and started on the 1st of October of this year. In the middle there, you'll see there, it says entrepreneur. So I started my first business when I was 16. I took my first show to Edinburgh. I've run my own youth theatres. I've run my own professional theatre company in London for a few years. And 2011, I bought Brighton Film School with a business partner. This is all while working in FE. I grew that film school from an 80,000 turnover business to 1.1 million before I sold it to a venture capitalist company. And I currently run a lingerie shop, which I don't work in, my wife does, and a property company. So I have those mix of entrepreneurial skills and education experience and skills that I bring to my to the leadership that I do. What I've tried to do is to distill down into 4 areas of focus in terms of what we do in terms of our leadership. So culture and ethos, which I think is the most important, teaching, learning and support, and customers at the heart of everything we do, and I'll come back to that, and systems and process. So my leadership and educational ethos is built around the passion and need to build young people, apprenticeships and adults confidence, build their self-esteem and build their skills. In most cases, my view is that the qualification is irrelevant, and actually we're preparing our learners for multiple careers. We need to give them the skills such as teamwork, communication, adaptability, attitude, a set of tools to ensure that they can get their dream job or dream university place. And I was in a student committee at lunchtime today, and the students were talking about it's not our job to prepare them for something, it's our job to prepare them for everything. And I thought that was a really good quote in terms of how we believe our culture and ethos is here in terms of our approach to our educational side. And I use the word customers because of my customer service background, I guess, my retail background. Some of my staff like that, some of them don't. But I do truly believe that students in FE are our customers, and to be successful, any business has to be customer centric. And FE colleges are a business, they're just in the business of education. And I think it's a really fine balance between being business focused and being educational focused, and you have to do both, but be aware of both as well. I'll come back to that later. That educational ethos crosses over into my leadership ethos too, and in fact, why wouldn't it? Because we want staff and our staff and our leaders to be confident. We want them to have high self-esteem and develop and develop their skills while they work for us. So the culture and ethos is really, really important. What I'm going to try and do as I go through the presentation is relate some of my learning in my career to the leadership culture that we've created at CCG and show how that's helped CCG become outstanding through the various mergers that it's done and how we tackled some of those mergers going forward. People are obviously incredibly important. People are the most important asset in any organisation, and actually more so in education, I feel. We're a people business, and people are our business. And I coined this phrase, which is happy staff, happy customers. And I absolutely, truly believe if you have happy staff, happy leaders, then you will have happy customers. And I'll show you some of our staff satisfaction results later on. And I think, if staff feel valued, they're appropriately recognised, they're going above and beyond, then they will work really hard for you, and they will be really passionate about what they do. It's important we look after their well-being. It's important that we talk about work-life balance a lot, and I talk about work-life balance a lot to the staff and the teams, and that's really important to me. And we talk about the importance of the reason why the oxygen mask in the airplane falls down first. If you don't put your own oxygen mask on and look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else. And we use that metaphor quite a lot to make sure that they are looking after themselves. And that mantra that family comes first. And that's really important to me. And if a member of staff says to me, or a leader says to me, and one of my team says, "Oh, can I have this afternoon off because I need to go and see my kids' nativity play?" Absolutely, 100%. You go and do that, because I know they're going to give back tenfold. If I say, "Oh no, you can't do that," well, they miss out on that. You miss out on that forever, don't you? And that's really important that they have that culture. The other thing that I think is really important is that just the simple mechanisms. Like we have this agreement that when you have one-to-one meetings, you start those one-to-one meetings with, "How are you? How are you doing? You okay? You all right?" Rather than being task focused. And that's really important about being present with that member of staff in that meeting and caring about them and showing that you're caring about them, showing you're caring about their well-being. The task stuff comes later. And yes, obviously there are tasks that need to be done, actions need to be taken, but it is all about looking after that person and making sure that they are happy. We've embedded a coaching culture within the organisation. All of our staff went through the ILM Coaching Award or the Licence to Coach, which we developed ourselves, student tutors, teachers, etc. So that coaching culture is embedded within the organisation. And we use the word together a lot, one team, one focus, being together, how important that language of leadership is, that belief, that drive, that openness, having that distributed leadership at all levels so that staff feel they are empowered to make decisions. And when I went to GBNet last year as interim CEO, it was very clear that the power dynamic in the organisation only existed at the top and nobody else was allowed to take any decisions. And I'll give a very simple example. When I went over there, I did some staff focus groups, and one lady said to me, she was an admin assistant, she said, "Oh, I have to send all these different emails out to parents and students, and I have to do them one after the other because it just takes so long." And I said, "What's the solution?" She said, "Oh, I need to buy MailChimp or whatever system she was using." I said, "Well, how much is that?" She said, "It's £10 a month." I said, "Why haven't you done it?" "Well, I'm not allowed to. Nobody's allowed to make that decision." And all those sorts of decisions have to go up and down the organisation. So it's about that empowerment of those staff to make reasonable decisions within a framework, to feel empowered to make that. And I was talking to a couple of union reps from Haywards Heath just before this meeting, actually. And the guy was saying, one of the real positive is that I feel really, he's a new teacher, he's teaching economics and business, and I've been really empowered to deliver myself. I'm not being micromanaged. I feel really trusted. I feel really valued in this organisation. The support is there if I need it, if I want to go and ask someone, but nobody's micromanaging, looking over my shoulder all the time. And I feel so much more valued because of that. And I think that's really important. Reward and recognition is obviously really important as well. And there are lots of different mechanisms you can do that, both informal and formal. It has to be meaningful. We have Star of the Team, we have Staff Stars at an annual Star event, we have Inspirational Teacher of the Term Award nominated by students, Inspirational Support Worker of the Term nominated by students, Staff Summer Barbecue, Christmas dinner at Christmas, postcards, but a real culture where we really focus on saying thank you. And that's really important, a real focus on saying thanks for that, really appreciate that. Not that, and I've heard managers say to me, "Well, why should I thank them? That's just their job. They're just doing their job." But a thank you can go a long, long way. And it doesn't matter if they've just done their job, say thank you. It comes back to kindness, which I'll come back to in a second. We also have this thing called act of random kindness. So this is a little postcard that staff can just leave on someone's desk. Just to let them, if they've done something amazing, they can sign it or not sign it, or sometimes they leave it with a chocolate bar, etc. And it can be left there, and for the member of staff that gets it, you just think, "Oh, that's amazing, somebody's really valued me today, that's really kind." And it can be for anything that they've done or gone above and beyond. So just to sort of back that up with some staff survey data, so 95.9% my contribution is valued, 97.3% proud to be an employee of Chichester College Group, 94% recommend Chichester College Group, etc. So when we test some of this stuff, we are getting the results to show that staff do feel valued. I also really focus on something that's called outputs, not inputs. When I first joined Chichester College in 2010, managers had to be in their office by 7:30 or they got screamed at, shouted at by the previous regime. And actually, if they didn't work a really long day, they got shouted at, but their outcomes are really poor. So that doesn't correlate. So actually, I say to my team, actually, I'm going to measure you on output. So if you can deliver outstanding student achievement, outstanding customer satisfaction, staff satisfaction, financial strength, good recruitment, I don't care if you're in the organisation 1 hour a week or 100 hours a week, because I'm going to measure you on your outputs. And it comes back from when I worked for Boots, there was a store manager who I was late most mornings by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, because I don't like mornings. I'm not a good morning person. And he chastised me ridiculously for that. But I was always in the store an hour after my shift had finished, or that I'd stopped being paid, making sure the store looked amazing for the next day. And that made me feel really undervalued, because he was focusing on the minutiae of detail and not recognising the bigger picture. And that's really informed my leadership culture in terms of measuring those outputs and looking at that bigger picture and making sure that staff feel really valued. Visibility is really important for the CEO, the senior team and managers in any organisation. It is a challenge, not going to lie, across 5 colleges with 5 sites currently, and then what will become a bigger college across 11 sites is going to be challenging. I could be on a different site every day and not see somebody for 2 weeks. So that is a challenge. It's working out how to do that, but I think also it's recognising, and we work hard on the responsibility that a manager has or a leader has in the organisation. So if I walk down the corridor and I don't smile and say hello to someone, they're going to go, oh, well, what have I done? Why hasn't the CEO said hello to me? Why hasn't the exec principal said hello to me? And it's understanding culturally that that's really important, that you say hi to people, you smile at people, you ask them something, you remember something about them, you remember their name, and really consider your impact, your behaviour, the impact of your behaviour. It comes back to emotional intelligence. And we're really focusing on kindness as a word, and that new kindness being a new leadership superpower, being kind, think kind, act kind, random act of kindness, because actually the world would be a better place if we're all just a little bit kinder to each other. Leadership development is really important and at the heart of everything we've done, and we recognised early on that actually a lot of teachers get promoted into leadership roles with very little leadership experience. So we have a whole range of leadership development from level 1 through to level 4. So level 1 if you're a aspiring manager, right through to level 4 as if you want to be principal, what does that mean? And that gives them access, those people through those programs, access to a coach, access to shadowing senior managers, access to coming to governors meetings, presented at GLT, cross-college projects, because actually if you worked in your department just singularly and then working across a college, it's really important to get that experience. I have this phrase that you can't learn experience, you can only experience experience. And you don't understand how your body and how your mind's going to react in a certain situation until you've experienced it. And I'll give an example. So when I first promoted and I had to go into a hearing where I was going to have to fire someone, emotionally, that was really tough that first time. But the second time, doesn't mean you're cold, but emotionally you're ready for it because you've experienced it, you understand it, your body understands it. But you can't teach that. You can't train how you're going to feel in that situation. You have to experience it. Students at the heart of everything we do is a very obvious one. I've talked about that customer-centric culture, student voice being at the heart. We involve students in everything, every appointment panel, every procurement panel. We actually include them in lesson observations as well. We have a paid student president. So it's really making sure that it's not just rhetoric, it's actual, genuine, putting the students at the heart and listening to those customers. Systems and processes is an interesting one. System processes, I think people sometimes forget in terms of leadership, because systems and processes can really make or break an organisation, and actually it's really important. And we assess all of our systems and process against 3 simple questions. Is it simple? Is it relevant? Does it have a positive impact on the student experience? If it's not simple, make it simple. If it's not relevant, stop doing it. And if it doesn't have a positive impact on it, why are we doing it? So we test all of our systems and processes against that, and we change them. We've still got work to do there, but systems and processes can make people feel very different. And I think that comes back to that leadership. It's about, feelings drive behaviour, behaviour drives feelings. And if you're getting tied down on the red tape and the process is going to affect how people feel. One of obviously the most successful thing we do here is teaching, learning and support, and the way that we've spread the quality of that across the group each time that we've merged. I haven't got time to talk about that now, it's a whole different presentation, but the most important thing there is about that trust. So lesson observations, the grading of lesson observations I got rid of 10 years ago, way before Ofsted said it was trendy to do so. It's very much about that professional dialogue. We don't call it feedback anymore. We call it professional dialogue, because feedback is something I do to you or you do to me. Professional dialogue is a conversation. So now teachers are asking us to go and see particular lessons rather than rolling out their grade 1 lesson every year when they come, because the grading has nothing to do with their performance, because it's just a point in time. So actually now, for example, I have an ADHD son, so I know a lot about ADHD, and so teachers actually say, well, can you come to my lesson? I've got an ADHD child in there, student in there. Can you come and observe my lesson and tell me how I can, do better with this young person? So that culture of openness is really there, because they know it's not a grading thing. Just very quickly, some student surveys, just to show that I'm not making it all up. So teachers are helpful and approachable, 97%, teaching have been good, 96%, etc. The atmosphere at the college feels safe and welcoming, and I feel proud to be a student at CCG, 92%, really high scores. And then just to finish off, really, challenges when merging, and I like to call it the Buzz Lightyear effect. So when we merged with Crawley, it was like, oh, we became outstanding in 2014, that was great, and everybody was like, what's the next challenge, what's the next challenge? And so when we merged with Crawley, everybody was like, well, that's the next challenge. And so let's all play with the new shiny Buzz Lightyear and let's forget Woody in the background. And it's really important that you maintain the focus on the older colleges as you take on the new colleges. That's really important, and we have to really watch that, because and we have seen dips in the other colleges as we've taken on new colleges going forward. The other thing I think is important to watch is the sharing of expertise. So we have very well developed managers in our foundation colleges, which are Chichester and Brinsbury, and sharing their intellect and their expertise across the other colleges as we merge with them has been fantastic. But obviously it's a drain on them, it's a drain on their resources, a drain on them running their own departments back here at Chichester and at Brinsbury. Other challenges is visibility, as I've mentioned. The other challenge is the structure we have is a principal of each of the colleges, but then obviously the central services are centrally delivered HR, centrally delivered estate, centrally delivered student support, etc. So there's a tension between the autonomy of the principal delivering what they have to deliver and the estates team saying, well, I want to do this, or the HR team doing this, or the HR team. So we have to really think about how that matrix management works in a really clever and sophisticated way. There are other things that I could probably come out in the question and answer. So just to finish off then, so we are very humble. We know that we are proud of what we've achieved, but we know we're not perfect. We need to continue to reflect and continue to improve and continue to change more lives through learning, which is the mission. We're changing the mindset of learners from can't to can, teachers from impossible to possible, and our mindset of managers and leaders to it won't work to it will work. And we are officially outstanding. So I will stop presenting. Happy to take any questions, hopefully.
Well, thank you so much. That was a whirlwind presentation of the journey you've been on personally and professionally. I've been doing some work with AOC, and I found out that professional development and the investment in it is a little bit ad hoc. In the feedback we're getting, some of the findings from the research, which has been, some of it's been presented next week alongside some of your colleagues. So that professional development element stood out for me, the leadership development in particular. But I want to stop there and then pass on to my colleague. So Ron, I think you're up first. Your question, please.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Thank you, Andrew. Very interesting presentation. How would you describe the contribution of the governing board to the success of your group?
Sorry, Rob, could you say it again? It just cut out in the middle.
How would you describe the contribution of your governing board to the success of your group?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. Governance is really, really important, isn't it? And I think having a really strong governance team with the right skill set, the right expertise, and the right risk appetite as well. And every time that we also identified that we wanted to merge, the first merger and the consequent mergers and reopening Haiti, they were very strict in terms of what's the risk to the outstanding brand, what's the risk to the existing colleges, what's the risk to the finances of the organisation. So having that really strong critical friend in a governing body and that skill set to draw on is really, really important.
Do you think governance needs to be strengthened? The Department for Education thinks so.
Yeah, I think early chats with the new FE Commissioner would indicate that's the case. I think that there are a number of, if you look at those colleges who have fallen into trouble, then there are definitely issues with governance. And when I went into GB Met, they had in fact a whole brand new board apart from one or two governors, which obviously is not ideal in any situation. And they none of the new governors knew that they were inheriting what was quite a basket case. And so that sort of succession planning, that skills planning around governance is really, really important. And I think where that isn't happening, or where you've got governors that have been there for years and years. So here we have a rule that our chair of governors can only do 2 years, and our governors can only do, I think, 2 sets of 4 years tenure. So we've constantly got that refreshing of governance.
Thank you very much. I'll pass on to Colin. Thank you.
Yes, over to you, Colin.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Exhilarating talking to you the darkness of Yorkshire as opposed to the South Coast. I just want to reflect on what Ron said about governance. It's unusual inspection report, yours, Andrew, isn't it? In that the Ofsted commentary of governance is quite substantial as opposed to other. Ron and I pore over Ofsted reports to see what insight they give us into governance dynamics, or at least Ron makes me do it. It's unusual. It is very unusual. But I'm going to cross into Christina's territory now, because about trust and values, that seemed to be central to a lot of what you were saying, Andrew, about how you've blended the cultures and where you've got work still to do. And I'm very interested in your own personal journey. It's a unique journey from that slide with those bullet points in. And where do you see your journey going next, particularly in terms of this uniformity around trust and values and the emphasis you put on that and its link to culture?
Yeah, thank you. It's I've had an eclectic career route to here, I guess, and I think that when I was being interviewed for the CEO job, I said I think I've quite a rare mix of business acumen and educational experience coming together. It's quite a rare mix in terms of that entrepreneurial going forward. And I think that there are a number of things that have influenced my values and my leadership over the years. Some of those experiences within my commercial world, in my retail background, but also my personal life in terms of having a child with SEND and the way I've had to fight for the right for them to get the right education. We were told at 7 years old he wouldn't get any GCSEs. The best we could do is keep him out of prison, which as an educator I absolutely refused to lie down and take that. And I read every research paper, and we worked really hard on making sure he was determined and understood his disability and etc. and what he could do. And I think that has really focused my inclusivity. We are totally inclusive here, so we allow every single student that applies to Chichester College Group to come to Chichester College Group. And we have 1,000 students with the HCPs across the group, etc. And Sammy, my son, actually went on to achieve 12 GCSEs, 3 A's, and is now at a top drama school in London. So it can be done, and it's that determination, that relentless focus. And I was speaking to a guy at Haywards Heath. I was at Haywards Heath College the other day, and he just came up to me and said, "I love working here." He said, "I've just started, but I absolutely love working here." I said, "Oh, that's amazing. Can you tell me why you love working here?" He said, "Well, I was working at another local sixth form college, and there they really push the students, and if they don't make the grade, they kick them out." He said, "Was here, you really push the students, and if they don't make the grade, you support them. And then they don't make the grade, you support them until they make the grade, and then you get them through." And it's that inclusivity and that relentless passion to never give up on the learners, I think really comes through in my experience and my own personal experience, I guess, and my own values going forward. I'm not sure that answered your question, but
where next, Andrew, then? How do you see this evolution continuing?
So I think, obviously, I get asked that question a lot. So what are you going to do different now? Now you've taken over from Sheila. I said, well, we're an outstanding college group. So in terms of education, let's not fix what isn't broken. So let's carry on with our values and our culture, etc. I think what I bring is a different entrepreneurial flair to that. So I'm very keen on getting education out into the community more. So I'm looking at opportunities around, obviously we've got the merger to deal with to get across the line with GB Met, but I'm looking, and I'm already talking to, for example, the Cathedral in Chichester in terms of students running their cafe, pop-up shops in Worthing High Street, a skills centre here, etc. So it's that entrepreneurial flair. I want to create an entrepreneurial academy because I think post-pandemic there are, if we're going to get out of this post-pandemic, there are more opportunities for young people to start their own businesses and see that as a valid option, a valid path for them. So creating an environment where they can get the skills, advice and knowledge to actually do that going forward.
Thanks very much, Andrew.
That's wonderful. And we have another question from Craig.
Yeah, good afternoon, Andrew. Just picking up on several strands there. You mentioned inclusivity, and part of my attraction to this post-16 research and interest group part of BELMAS is thinking about the transition between the school or academy-based education through FE into higher education, be it through HEI or indeed higher level learning through apprenticeships, whatever. And I was interested by your inclusivity and commitment to the individual, and also the values nature of what you've described. If I understand your circumstances right, it seems to be a bit an FE college group, because I sit on the White Rose Academy Trust, which is part of the Luminate group. Yeah. And we've got, obviously now within the group, we've got secondary and FE in various guises, and HE, both as a HE school and a HE institution. And part of that model brings real leverage into the local education debate and discussion. I was wondering how you use your group status to influence that inclusivity and the strategic planning that pre and post 16 need to basically knock heads together and get this sorted in some respects.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously we're very well connected with all of the HEI, so Brighton University, Sussex University, Chichester University locally, and sit on various partnership boards with the local authority. We're tied into all of the different local councils, etc. And the model that we have is very much the local college. So it isn't Crawley College, part of Chichester College. It's Crawley College, it's Worthing College, it's Hayward Heath College. So the principal is therefore responsible for the quality and the delivery, and also the engagement with the local stakeholders to make sure they are delivering what meets the needs of the local community. So that will involve lots of liaison with schools, universities, etc., to make sure that that pathway through and into and beyond us is very, very clear and articulated. I think the challenge we have is that in many schools, as I'm sure you're aware, they want to hang on to their students, so they don't necessarily give them all the advice and guidance they should. They don't necessarily give them all the advice around apprenticeship being a valid route, and I still think we're probably a generation away from apprenticeships being a valid route. The biggest conversation I have on parents on open evenings or open mornings, parents come to me and say, we want Jennifer to do A-levels, she wants to do vocational. Can you convince her to do A-levels? I say, well, what does Jennifer want to do? Why do you think she needs to do A-levels? Oh, she wants to be an engineer. Well, then actually, this is another valid route that she could do this, this, and this. How does she like to be assessed? So it is still a little way away from that parity of esteem around those qualifications. So it is about tying in. I mean, we did look at free schools. We looked at being part of an academy or setting up our own academy trust in the early days. We looked at 14 to 16 on our own roll, but we decided that actually we wanted to stick to our core business, which was FE. We do 14 to 16, those that have been expelled from school, expelled from the pupil referral unit, we take them in. We've got about 150 of those, and we do really well, and they progress on to our courses, and they are very troubled young people, and we turn them around and we get them onto our mainstream courses. But we wanted to do what we do really, really well going forward.
Can I have a quick follow-up on that, if I may, because you've got an audience of academic and researchers. So in terms of your vision for education in a broader sense, what research buttons would you like to be pressed to actually shape tomorrow's education environment, if you like, on the basis of what works and impact?
I think for me, what we find in FE is that we get a lot of young people who come to us who have had their confidence and self-esteem destroyed by the rigid structure of the secondary school system. So if you are in, this may be controversial, and I apologise, if you are sat in, if you're not going to be part of the grade 4 to 9 to 4 or A to C as it was in our time, if you're sat in sets 3 and 4, you are babysat in schools for most of the time, because they actually they're focused on the kids on the borderline and the kids getting the high grades because they're driven by performance tables. So they turn up here thinking, well, I'm rubbish, I've been in set 4 all my life, I can't do anything. And they come to us and I go, you can do whatever you like. So you go and do some brickwork, some carpentry, some catering, some healthcare, whatever you do, but you still got to do maths and English. And they're like, oh my God, I hate maths and English. I say, well, yeah, but you won't hate it here, actually, because we do it in a slightly different way. And actually, the focus is rebuilding their confidence and their self-esteem in education. It's not, and some of them come in and they'll pick up a trowel and be brilliant at bricklaying and go, look, you can do that. And they're like, oh my God, I can actually do something. I'm actually worth something. I can do something properly. So it's about, I think, looking at how that system can really focus on skills, confidence and development. Because my passion is that if you build the confidence and self-esteem of young people or adults or apprenticeships, they can go on to achieve anything. And they won't do a career for life anymore. They do 4 or 5 different careers. So it's those transferable skills that we need to really focus on, and those values within those young people and those adults, as opposed to having to teach them history, having to teach them geography, having to teach them this, that and the other. And the 14-year-olds that come out of school, because they're, I can give you 100 examples where 14-year-olds come out of school, come to us, and because we put them in some vocational stuff and they still do their core with us, their lives are transformed because actually they feel better about themselves.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Christina, over to you.
Hi Andrew, thank you so much for that presentation. I really love the things that you're saying, and Colin may have given a little clue about the question that I'm about to ask, because I'm a trust researcher, so I'm really interested in trust. And so, the headline data in your presentation is beautiful, but I feel like it kind of covers up a lot of complexity, and obviously you said you started this journey in 2010, so it was obviously some of these changes that you've managed to make haven't happened overnight, have they?
No.
And so one of the things that I'm thinking about is about how you as a leader, so one of the headline kind of lines from trust research is, to the perceptions of trustworthiness are really important in terms of building trust. So the person leading an organization must be perceived as competent, benevolent, and having integrity. And even from this presentation tonight, I can see that that's a really core part of what you're doing in terms of the way that you're trying to engage your staff. But the key part of that is around perceptions.
Yeah.
And if you've had institutionally, you've got so many different organizations under your umbrella, I imagine all of those institutions before they came under the college group have had a very different journey, and they will have histories of betrayal, and that will skew their perceptions of leadership, etc. So I guess one of the things that kind of came up for me in the presentation was that staff survey, and one of my questions was, how does that break down by college? Are there any colleges where you are having more difficulty in terms of building those trust, and what do you think those issues are? And I guess as a follow-up question, you kind of touched upon the ways in which you've started to try and build those trust cultures back up in each of those organisations, but I'd be really interested in more detail on that. And as you grow the college group even further, do you foresee any difficulties in maintaining that trust culture moving forward?
Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are some differences in the underlying in colleges, and actually it's really interesting for me because when we merged with Crawley, they were so desperate to be saved in a sense, so that was an easier win in a sense, and then opening Hayward Heath was just opening Hayward Heath. Worthing College is an interesting one because Worthing College obviously took the decision to merge themselves, so it's not like we were asked to take them over or forced to take them over. We won by a competitive tender, and they are much more, they're not a sixth form college, they are designated a GFE, but they're much more, the culture is much more sixth form college, and the teachers are on sixth form college terms and conditions. And so the cultural shift at Worthing College has been much slower than it was at Crawley. Some of that is to do with the fact that my group people haven't necessarily had experience of a sixth form college before, and so they've had to really think and work out what the different nuances of that are and how that plays out in terms of culture. And you can't just take Model A, which works in a GFE, and stick it in a sixth form college, because it doesn't quite work. It needs to be slightly tailored, and so the staff satisfaction at Worthing is slightly lower than the whole group. And what I'm doing about that is I'm just about to start a process of staff focus groups to go out and talk to them and say, right, what are the issues, what are the differences, what are the things. And it's interesting, and somebody talked about perception earlier, didn't they? It's interesting, because I've been meeting with all the union reps one-to-one just to build a relationship and build up my sort of trust with them, and I'll come back to that in the second part of the question in a second. And one of them said, oh, well, just to get loads more hours to teach their A-levels than we do. And I said, well, I don't think they do. I said, yeah, we only teach 4 hours a week and they teach 4.5 hours a week. I said, but you teach longer weeks and we teach less weeks. So actually the annual hours are exactly the same. She's like, well, I didn't know that. Didn't know that. So it's those, so, you know, it's that. And then she said, oh, Chichester College have got 17 professional learning coaches. We've only got 4. I said, yeah, but we're a 50 million college. 50 million organisation, you're a 12 million organisation college, so therefore there's going to be a difference. Oh, I didn't realise that. So sometimes it's that perception and communication around that that's really important. And in terms of that trust and those trust cultures, and I think if I use the example of when I went to GB Met, there was no trust there at all. It was completely broken. And so I started 2-week live webinars where I just talked to the staff and allow them to ask questions back. I have staff focus groups. I met with the union reps one-to-one. I met with every manager one-to-one to sort out, try and get what the problems were. I said to staff, email me and I will respond. And so staff started emailing me and I would respond back saying, thanks for that, really great for you to bring that to my attention. We'll see what we can do. And they were coming back saying, well, I've never had an email back from a senior manager before. We just emailed off and it never came back before. So those sorts of things are really important, aren't they? That you communicate, that you keep to your promises. And, you know, when I'm in those focus groups, say, look, tell me everything that's wrong. I can't promise to change everything, because everybody will go, you know, I need more pay and I need more this, that, and the other. So it's making sure that you aren't over promising and you're just listening and saying, actually, you know, I will try and do my best for you. And then going out and talking to staff, popping into staff. I go and be a student for half a day. So I go and be a catering student for half a day or a brickwork student for half a day, so the staff get to teach me and stuff like that. So it's building that authenticity, that authentic leader, and being open and being real, I guess, with staff, which builds that trust. And you know, it took a long time at GB Met to build that trust. And at the end of the year with the governing body, I used 2 emails from the same member of staff. At the beginning of the year, he sent me this email saying, GB Met's terrible and leaders are terrible and this is rubbish and etc, etc. And then he sent me an email at the end of the year saying, you have saved this college, thank you so much. And it's that, you know, and I identified him early on as a really key player, influencer, a bit like a social media influencer in the organisation. So I went and spent time in his area. I said, come and show me your students, come and show me your work. What have you done? Tell me what's wrong, etc, etc. So it's picking off those key influencers who are then going to go, oh yeah, you met Andy Green, he's quite a decent bloke, you know, etc, etc.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for the question, Christina. I think it's really important to talk about trust, and particularly the way you open it up there. I'm interested in the timescale you might have in mind, Andrew, for getting Brighton having a similar culture to the rest of the group. You're thinking 2 years, 2 to 3 years, do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, with Crawley, they obviously requires improvement when we merged with them, and 2 years, 6 months later, we got outstanding. We will be inspected within 3 years of the new merger, so I have to get it to the point of outstanding, because the worst thing we can do is to lose that outstanding status across the new group. So it's the 3-year timescale is the plan to get them up to outstanding.
Thank you for that. And we've got a question from Deborah Hathwaite.
Thanks very much, Andrew. I was really keen to come to today because I started my career at Alton College, you know, up the road from you. Yeah. I did. And Alton's one of those interesting places which had been an FE college and went to a sixth form college. So I was there as a sixth form college with those terms and conditions. Yeah. And it was fascinating actually working with people who, you know, had those imposed on them, you know, people who didn't want to give up the silver book, you know, at the start of my career when I wasn't really clear what the silver book was at all. So it was really really interesting thing. So I sit on the all-party parliamentary group for the teaching profession, and one of the things we were talking about in last Monday's meeting was, and you've touched on it in your presentation today, this lack of parity, particularly with the introduction of T-levels.
Yeah.
And nationally, there's some debate now about the fact that we're going to lose BTECs because of T-levels.
Yeah.
But actually, it's our BME groups, 37% of them actually, that are significantly using BTECs to access places in HEIs.
Yeah.
So just some sort of strategic thoughts about the sector and how it responds to that. I think it's a really interesting position. I'm, concerned as somebody who's been interested in the whole concept of parity of esteem. I'm really concerned about that.
Yeah, I absolutely share that concern. I think the loss of BTECs will be a massive loss to the whole institution. BTECs are very well respected. They're understood by employers. They're understood by parents. We have a very unique, at Worthing and Hayward Heath, we have a mixed economy. So you can do a double BTEC and an A-level, or 2 A-levels and a BTEC. And if we lose that, we're going to lose our USP in a sense, because the other sixth form colleges, you either do A-levels or you do, you just do A-levels. I think it will absolutely disadvantage a huge range of people if we get rid of BTECs. I think they're a quality qualification. I can understand the shift towards less qualifications, because the landscape is confusing, and there are so many different awarding bodies and so many different qualifications, and if you NCFE can do this, and you can do this and this, etc. But I'm not a great fan of T-levels. I haven't been. I think my worry is that there'll be a bit of the new diploma, that we'll spend loads of money trying to develop them and then suddenly go away. My main concern with the T-levels is around the work placement, and that work placement being valuable, because the worst thing you can do in a work placement is a student go out and not get any value from that. They're photocopying, or they're making tea, or they're doing this, that, and they're not going to do their self-esteem or confidence any good whatsoever. And also there's the risk, isn't there, that you all your great employers, you send a T-level student out to them, and the student's quite not ready for the workplace, and their attitude pisses the employer off, excuse my French, and then you lose that employer, and then you lose the apprenticeship you sent with that employer, etc. So there's a whole complex landscape around what we're doing. And I think there are noises coming out of ministers now, aren't there, that they might be reviewing that BTEC decision. There's a lot of pressure under them to sort of think again. If you talk to parents, you talk to employers, they haven't got a clue what T-levels are. They don't have a clue. And so it's like, well, we're going to go to T-levels, and then you're going to get all these kids are going to turn up and employers say, yeah, I've got a T-level. Well, brilliant. Did you do a BTEC? Did you do an A-level? So it's a worry. I'm concerned.
Thank you for that. Well, there's no other questions coming in yet, but please, if you've got anything you want to ask Andrew, please shout out now. You don't have to put your hand up. We can just take it as we go. From my perspective, as you know, from the first time I spoke to you, Andrew, on some other issue, I was just entranced by what you've achieved and what you put yourself through with Brighton, with the opportunity to come there. And I can see, as a variety of perspectives, how the journey is potentially going to go. Now that you've got the knowledge of Ofsted's going to be around the corner, whatever you do, you've got to be ready for Ofsted.
Yeah.
So the 3-year timescale sounded reasonable in my head, but then it's even more relevant because of what you said about getting prepared for Ofsted. As your governors, from a governance perspective, going back to an earlier point, they need to see you maintaining what you've achieved.
Yeah.
At the very least, and then the diversification you've talked about, the impact in the community, and those innovative entrepreneurial views you've got about how to make the college more relevant in the community.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very generous of you to share your personal experience with your son, and that would have shaped your approach and values, and
it does.
Made you perhaps focus on that part of the college that you, not you personally, but some people may not have, because it's expensive, it's challenging, and you've got to give it the resources, and you know that personally, and that really is important for me to acknowledge, and I know my colleagues are for the same. But I just want to say thank you for everything you've done today, and obviously your journey that you've shared with us. And it'll be on the BELMAS website, and others will have the opportunity to see it. We've had about 16 to 18 people at one point here today. So that shows interest across the sector, including fellow principals. I know that, as researchers and practitioners. So thank you for your time. You've given us nearly the hour, which is the maximum I could have anticipated. So thank you for that, and thank you to all of you who've kindly chosen to attend today. I think this meeting on Teams is probably going to stay for a very long time now that we don't have to travel a long way to meet each other, and you may get a better turnout because of that. A number of my colleagues, Craig, Christina, Colin, Ron and Catherine, we're staying on to talk about planning. If any of you have got a strong view about the direction of a post-16 rig, then don't go, hang around, because we want to know how we can take this forward. Practitioner research has been talked about, doctoral students presenting, but today has been gold dust, and that's sort of the basis in which I want to go forward with everyone. So thank you, Andrew.
No,
and we'll let you get back on with your the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody. I hope it was interesting. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, that was great.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming. I think we're hanging in there now, just checking who's going to stay with us or not. Well, just to say to you all, what we agreed broadly, and Ron was at the initiator of this, was to agree a date and to build around that some very interesting and practical, sensible practitioner-based research or high-level research, or sharing our own research, and hopefully getting a similar amount of people to want to come 3 times a year. So I just want to take a breather and ask you, because there's a few of us here now, we can just talk through next steps. So Christina, you've been really helpful, came to the party relatively late, but you've been fantastic. So can I pass to you for your ideas, and then I'll make a few notes, and by the way, I'll stop recording, so that's always helpful.